So welcome everybody. Welcome to Accelerate 2021, our second day. My name is Michael Nelson from Lucid Payments. I am your Zoom Jedi. So if you need anything at all, just let me know. Make sure your connection is good and you are muted. And here we go.
Excellent. Very good. So I don't have any slides today. It's not because I'm ill prepared. It's that I don't want it to be that way. So I want this to be more of a discussion. I'm going to talk about some things. And then if you all have any questions, feel free to just chime in. And so it'll be very, very casual. All right. First question.
I am so sorry I arrived late. My sincere apologies. But before Shirley started, I wanted you to know this woman's reputation precedes her. I see Andrew is on the call as well. We don't know Shirley quite well in Canada. I think if people knew who she is, this room will be the fullest. But hey, all the better for those of us that are here. But Shirley has the greatest success for starting chapters in the United States, and she is legendary in the organization. So great to have you, Shirley. For those of us that are on the call, you have no idea how incredibly privileged we are to have her on this call.
Oh, you're so sweet. That's very humbling for sure. I appreciate that. Um, I just have to say that I I f- I'm just gonna say I love BNI. Like I was born to do BNI. There is nothing more exciting to me than BNI. I get to wake up every single day and do BNI. So I love it. I was like I said, it's a blessing. Funny story. I was really just a chapter president, and one day I had that actually somebody from BNI corporate asked me to speak at the conference. They thought I was like an area director and I wasn't. So they asked me to speak, and then they go to I go to register and they're like, well, it says that you're not an area director. I'm like, no, I'm not an area director. They were like, you're speaking. I'm like, yeah, they asked me to speak, I'm speaking. They're like, well, but you're not an area director. No. Well, what are you? I'm like, president of my chapter. So that's how it started. And so the owners of the franchise got really, really nervous about me speaking, and that the fact that they asked me and it kind of went over their head and they didn't know what was happening. And so they were like coaching me up. And while they were coaching me up, I said, hey, if you ever want to sell this franchise, I'd be interested. And she looked at me and she said, well, I feel certain that we would sell it to one of our area directors. And I had what I call a Shirley Tourette's moment. I said, well, you just never know. You might go to sell it and your area directors might not have the money that you're looking for, insinuating that I had the money that they were looking for. And I didn't. But it came out of my mouth. I don't know. It was just a moment, and it came out of my mouth. And the husband looked at me, and he like had eye contact with me, and I could just see like we connected. And a month later, he asked me if I wanted to buy the franchise, and I did, and then I had to find the money. They just assumed I had it because after I said that, they just assumed I had it. So anyway, I cashed in all of my 401k and I bought this region. And I don't regret it for one moment. I love BNI. So, I starting chapters, it is a passion of mine. I'm very fortunate that I have an amazing mentor, Ron Kirby. And I'll remember the day he said, hey, I want to talk to you about something. He was like, you can't have this mentality that you're going to fix chapters and grow your region like you need to grow it. He said, you got to create some new ones. He said, you got to do both, but you got to create some new ones. And I was like, well, I don't know how to create a new one. He was like, yes, you do. You have the passion and you just need to go try it. He said, get a few people in the room. He said, get a few realtors in the room and talk to them about starting a chapter and see where it goes. So I sent out 25 emails to realtors that I knew, and 12 of them showed up. So 12 of them showed up, and I was like, well, this is a competitive situation. Only the best is going to win. I made up some point system like that day right in front of them. And the next week, we had 50 people in the room. We got 26 applications. We launched our first chapter in 6 weeks with 52 members. And it was crazy. I have never in my life been claustrophobic. So one day I was like 5 minutes late getting to this meeting, and it was a pretty small room, but when I walked in, the room was covered with people, and I had to get to the other side of the room, and I'm like trying to get my way through. It was like the worst concert I'd ever seen. It was just like wall to wall people. And at one point I looked up and there was a little cutout in the wall for into another room, and there were people sticking their heads in from the other room, and it was just the most exciting process that we've ever had. And but yeah, it was lots of fun. So that was my first chapter. And every time we launch one, we change it up a little bit. Like we learn different things for sure. But I do have a passion. I'm always conflicted about where to spend my time because I also love growing chapters. When I joined my chapter, I was number 36, and I was passionate about growing it. I thought that BNI, I'd been in a no name kind of referral group that met every other week. And I just spent so much time trying to get people to be intentional in there. When I walked into this room and saw how organized it was, I felt like I was in heaven. And I thought, well, now I can really invite professionals. And I went back to the other group and got all the people that were worth having, and I brought them in, and they were like, "How did you get all these people?" And so that kind of got me going with that. And in my first year, I think I sponsored 12. In my second year, I sponsored like 31. So it became a very big passion of mine to get the right people in the room. But I wasn't just inviting visitors, I was inviting leaders. So I worked really hard to invite leaders into our room. And so that's what started happening as we started getting more leaders in the room, and everybody kind of adopted that. We didn't just go out and just find somebody with a pulse. We went out and found somebody with leadership capabilities and would invite them into our room. And that's how that chapter grew. It went from 36 to I think 51 the next year, and then to 61. And we grew by 28 the next year. And ever since, it's been growing by 20 a year. And so that chapter is now sitting at 152. Um, so yeah, so it's a bear to manage. It is so much fun though. It is just a lot of fun. That chapter meeting is a production every week, like, and when it's in person, it's a force to be reckoned with. That's a ton of people in the room. But it is a room where they pass millions and millions of dollars. And it's a room where you see amazing things happen. You see people transform in that room. You see relationships that you would not believe form in that room. And I'm super proud of that, but super proud of the region. We definitely have a region that has a strong culture. It's not just one chapter. We really work hard at referring cross chapter. We have a BNI Facebook page, and we estimate that we pass over $1 million worth of business cross chapter on that one page. So if anybody has any needs, they just don't go out and hire somebody. They always go to BNI. We have a new thing going on this year where if you buy a vehicle, we want it to be a BNI vehicle. Like we want it to be from a BNI, you know, dealership. And so we've really been pushing that, and it is crazy. We're seeing 3 or 4 cars being bought a week out of BNI. Um, there's this one guy in this one chapter. They say that if you go to have a one-to-one with him, you leave with a Dodge Ram. In his first 2 months of BNI, he sold 9 Dodge Rams. And these are $70,000 vehicles, so pretty fun stuff. So those are the kind of things that we like to see in our region. So as ambassadors, I just in the room, I want to get a feel. Raise your hand if you're a director. Is that what most of you are? Okay. An ambassador? Okay. All right, perfect. So, what I wanted to do today is just kind of talk about what kind of value that you can add to your members, but then also how that value will turn around and help you. So I don't know how each of you get compensated. I don't know if you're on a commission base. I think most people are some level of commission. But I think the thing that you got to realize is you've got to inspire people to bring people, but you got to make it about them, not about BNI. And I think that I think that we really saw that through our visitors days, that people were just like, "Oh my gosh, visitors day, visitors day, visitors day." And I don't know, at some point I was just like, I don't want it to be about visitors day. I want it to be about who do you need in your room? Like, you don't want just somebody with a pulse in your room. You want somebody in your room that has leadership capabilities, somebody that you're going to be proud to refer to your best client. So that is I call my stink test. I don't want somebody in my room if I can't refer them to my mama, my best friend. I know I probably sound Southern saying that, my mama, my best friend, or my best client. If I can't refer you to my best client, then why am I inviting you to be in my room? And so, we hear Ivan Miser talk all the time about who do you let in your room. Well, my daddy started having these conversations with me when I was a little tiny girl. And I remember him waking me up. He would not let my mom wake me up. It was his job to wake me up. My dad was a true workaholic. That's where I definitely get my work ethic from. He worked all the time, a very, very driven man. And, but he wanted to wake me up. And he also wanted to put me to bed. That was his thing. He couldn't be there in between, but by God, he was going to do those two things. Every morning when he woke me up, he asked me, "Are you going to be a donkey or are you going to be a thoroughbred?" Every day he asked me that. And when I was little, I would ask him, I was like, "Well, Daddy, sometimes I would say a donkey, sounds like being a donkey would be fun today." And he was like, "No, you don't want to be a donkey." He's like, "Donkeys are the ones that sit on the sidelines and they go wah wah wah. They make donkey noises. They make excuses all the time." He's like, "But you're not a donkey. You don't make excuses." He said, "You want to be a thoroughbred. Thoroughbreds might fall down, but they're going to get back up and they're going to cross the finish line and they're going to do it with class. Donkeys don't have any class about them. They're sitting back making excuses and they're kind of sloppy and they're just not well put together." He was like, "You want to be a thoroughbred. So every day you get to decide, are you going to be a donkey or are you going to be a thoroughbred?" He said, "And then you got to decide, who are you going to hang out with? You going to hang out with thoroughbreds or are you going to hang out with donkeys?" He said, "Thoroughbreds that hang out with donkeys, I don't know, they find themselves, they start to make donkey noises." He said you can't do that, like, because you'll start making donkey noises. He said when you let a donkey in your room, he said you gotta figure out a way to get them out of your room because you don't want to start making donkey noises. You want to run with the thoroughbreds. And so I'll never forget when I started dating, that was always the question: is he a donkey or is he a thoroughbred? And so I was like, maybe 7 or 8 years old, and I would go to work with my dad on Saturday mornings, and he was trying to get me to shut up. So he was like, he'd give me some coloring books or whatever, and he had this little game with me that if I went so long without talking, he'd give me whatever. And so this guy walks into his office and they're talking, and I guess I'm listening to him. And about halfway through their conversation, I just kind of went like this, and my dad was like, "What?" Like he thought I had to go to the bathroom. And I said, "Donkey noises." And it was because the guy was in his office making excuses about why a project wasn't happening. So here I am. I call this guy a donkey, like right in front of him. And my dad was like, "Oh my gosh." So a few nights later at the dinner table, my dad tells my mom, he was like, "Yeah." He was like, he tells her the story that I called this man a donkey. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, how embarrassing." He was like, "Yeah, but she's right. I fired him today." So my dad fired this dude because I diagnosed him as a donkey. He said he couldn't get it out of his mind. Every time the guy started talking, he heard excuses, he heard donkey noises, and he said he realized that he'd let a donkey on his team. And so I don't know. I had the opportunity to speak in Florida, and they were talking about who you're going to let in the room. And I thought about the donkey story. So I told him the donkey story. So you're the second group I've ever told the donkey story to. But I think about it a lot when I'm in chapters. Sometimes I'll be watching the Zoom screen and I'll hear somebody start, and I'm like, "Oh, they're making donkey noises." You can tell. And but anyway, so I want to just say that you as directors and ambassadors, you got to elevate your room to grow your room. I know that sounds a little whatever, but sometimes you have to lose some folks before you can go next level. So when I became president of that chapter, there were 41 members when I took over as president. And I wanted to add 10 members so we could get rid of the bottom 10. That sounds really mean, doesn't it? Every time I would look at the reports, the bottom people were the same people, and they every month it was like 10 people dragging us down. We'd have all green and then the 10. So I was like, "Oh, forget this. We're going to add 10, keep them in the green, like start them in the green, keep them in the green, and then we're going to look at the bottom 10 and, we're going to be able to get rid of them because we've added 10." So like it wasn't about starting at 41 and losing down to 31. I wasn't doing it that way. I was going to get up to 51 and then get down to 41. But the funniest thing happened. We got rid of a guy that was 100% making some strong donkey noises. And then the other folks stopped making donkey noises. They saw that we lost that donkey and they started acting like thoroughbreds. So that was a shock to me. We probably lost 3. It was probably more like 3, but it wasn't the 10 we thought we were going to lose. Once they saw that we were holding people accountable, they started paying attention. And I think that that's what we got to get our chapters. We got to inspire our chapters to do is, don't give me the excuse. Oh yeah, we're trimming the fat. No, it's not like that. You got to grow the chapter and then trim the fat. Like you got to get that padding in there and then you do it and then you move on, but you never go back. So you start where you are, add 10 so you can get rid of 10, but hopefully you don't have to, and then you start to grow. And that's what happened in that chapter. That's why it continuously grows, is because they develop standards. And they're always today still looking at their bottom 10. So it's a huge thing. It sounds a little cult like, but the top 10 reach out to the bottom 10. We do it every month. So it's their goal. The top 10 in the chapter lights reach out to the bottom 10. They're assigned somebody and they reach out to them. And if they're having a crazy time, too busy, then we go down, to the 11th green person and we assign them. So we just assign people. And so the bottom 10 always gets reached out to. But here's the deal. Now it's a culture thing. If you get reached out to, you know what that means. So you either fix it or you leave. And it's such a good culture that they don't leave. They don't leave that chapter. They work hard to stay in that chapter. So, during COVID, I will tell you that in our region right now, we have 3 chapters of 11. It hurts my heart. It drives me nuts to think about a chapter 11. But there's 3 chapters of 11. One's not going to make it. I don't think they're going to make it. The other 2, I think, will make it and they will do fine. They don't, the 2 that are good they're thoroughbreds. They're thoroughbreds. They just have to learn to add other thoroughbreds. They're pretty complacent. The one chapter of 11, they're making donkey noises. It's always an excuse. They think that COVID only happened to them. They think they're the only ones homeschooling. It's all these excuses. And so you got to kind of figure that out. But so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. It's who you let in your room and the expectations you put out there for that chapter. This is a really neat time. Well, I don't know about Canada. When do you all change leadership teams? Is it October? Or is it something
April.
different?
April.
April.
Yes.
So
But we are changing in October, aren't we?
Yeah, we're changing in October as well.
Okay. So the 2 things that I really wanted to talk about today, other than just, who you let in your room and how you can elevate, were really effective one-to-ones and goal setting, I guess is what I should say. All right. So I hear Tim Roberts say all the time, there's 2 ways that you can become more effective in BNI, and that's to do what you do better and then to get in front of more people. Like, so those are the two things, right? And it makes a lot of sense. The thing I love about Tim Roberts is he makes things super, super easy to understand, and he's right. Um, but I think that one of the things that we've done here recently is really changed how we go at it from a membership standpoint. And that is really coaching people to have a better, more effective one to one. All right. So honestly, how many of you have gone to a one to one and you walked out of there and you thought, I just kind of sort of wasted that hour? Like you felt like you didn't really connect with that person, or you felt like you didn't get to say what you wanted to say, or you didn't make the connection that you felt you needed to make. And I spent my first year really having worthless one to ones. I might get to know Garth. I might get to know, how many kids he has and what kind of sports he likes, and I might get to know that about him. But that's really all I was doing in my one to ones. And then I got the opportunity for somebody to really teach me how to have an effective one to one. And now there's three things that I won't walk out of a one to one without knowing. And the very first thing is a bragging point. I have got to know what differentiates you from everybody else in what they do. So Garth, what do you do for a living?
I'm a corporate account manager with Rogers. I'm also the senior launch director in BC,
Nice.
Canada.
Okay. Perfect. So your full-time job, you said a corporate account?
Yeah. Corporate account manager with Rogers. That's the national telecom. So cell phones to companies.
Okay, cell phones to companies.
Correct.
Okay, excellent. Very good. So, when I meet with Garth, I've got to figure out, what different, or I don't have to figure out. Garth needs to teach me what differentiates him from everybody else that does what he does. So that's one of the things I'm going to ask. I'm going to say, Garth, I need it really simplified for me. If I get the opportunity on social media, somebody says, "Hey, we're looking for somebody to redo our cell phone plan at work." What is it I need to say about Garth to get him an introduction to that person? So I try to make it really simple. I want two sentences of what makes you different than everybody else. I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm not gonna make you do it. But you just figure out what those two sentences are. And then the next thing I want to know is what key situation to look for in order to bring you up in conversation. So, where I live, hurricanes come through, and so a horrible storm comes through. That's a key situation. Who can I refer in a key situation of a storm coming through? A roofer, a tree person, maybe a water restoration, maybe a landscaper, maybe somebody to fix the vehicle if there's collision repair. So there's all these things that I know when this key situation happens, I can bring up all these people in conversation. So we had a jewelry lady, okay, in this chapter, and her roofer had done a great job. When there's a storm that comes through town, I want you to think about me, and I need you to go to all your neighbors and see if I can, inspect the roof, because all these people are going to come from out of town when a big storm comes through and try to take our business out of our area. And so I'm local and I'll be here, whatever. And so she reaches out. A horrible hailstorm came through her neighborhood. She reaches out to him and says, "Do you have any flyers?" This was before Facebook. So it was like 2015. It was my first year in BNI. And she reaches out to me. He's like, "Yeah, I got some flyers." Well, she went and had 100 flyers made. And on each flyer, she wrote a handwritten sticky note that pretty much said, "Hey, please consider calling my friend. He'll be here after the storm is over. He's a great guy. You'll enjoy doing business with him." Just kind of gave him a little shout out. And she wrote that on 100 little sticky notes and put them on each flyer. And then she meets with these women friends of hers that walk the neighborhood, and she hands them out and she says, "Hey, hit this street, you hit this street, you hit this street." All of a sudden, these women are canvassing this neighborhood that's had this hailstorm. His phone starts ringing off the hook. In my first year of BNI, I watched her refer to him $753,000 worth of roofs. Can you believe that? 753,000. And if you don't know this about me, you'll learn it today. I am the most competitive person in the world. And when I saw all this happening, I was like, oh, I got to figure out how to do better than this. Like, she's beating me and I can't stand this. So I was, and I knew that she'd had this horrible hailstorm. I didn't go door knocking in her neighborhood for roofs. I did not do that. But I was like, I've just got to figure out what I can do to connect somebody that I can get this kind of thank you for closed business. But anyway, I did beat her by $1,000 that year. My first year in BNI, I passed $753,000 worth of business. I referred 2 house builds to a guy, but a builder in the chapter. So I did beat her just by a smidge. She and I are very close friends, but she just retired, and 6 years in BNI, she passed $3.4 million. She's the jewelry lady. But what she has is a heart of a giver, and it is what makes her, and she also presents herself as a resource to everybody she meets. 100%. So I mean, she's amazing at doing that. That is what I learned from her. It is the first thing you do when you join BNI is present yourself as a resource to everybody in your life. She literally would have a jewelry show, and I went to her jewelry show. There were 6 women sitting around a table, and she was like, "Hey, y'all, I'm going to be over here totaling up your orders. While I do that, here's my business card holder book. It has all of my favorite professionals in it. Go through, take out the cards, take a picture of it, and then put my card back in. Don't be stealing my cards." And she was just really fun how she did it. But she's like, and at the end, after I total up everybody's order, if you want a personal introduction to any of these professionals, you let me know. She's like, these are my BNI people. I eat lunch with them every week, and they love me and I love them, and they're going to take great care of you. So if you need anything, just let me know. I watched these 6 women devour this book. It was crazy amazing how they just did it. I see Brian popped on. He could probably tell me the podcast where she learned how to do that from. But it's presenting your business card holder to a client kind of, but she just did it in a really fun, natural way. It seemed very natural. But so she does this, and at the end, I hear all these people start saying, "Yeah, I want this, or I need this, and I need this." But what I did hear, my ears perked up, is I heard a woman say, "I want to build an outdoor kitchen with a gazebo," and she was going on and on. And it was a pretty nice neighborhood. And like 2, 3 weeks later in BNI, I heard a thank you for closed business go to Karen for like $38,000 for this outdoor kitchen. But there was a lady that got a new HVAC unit. I mean, there were several fairly big ticket items. So here is this little jewelry lady presenting her little book of business cards at this jewelry party. And I have to admit to you that when I joined that chapter, she was the one person that I wasn't like knocking down people to have a one-to-one with. Like, I was like, the jewelry lady. Like, why'd they let her in? Like, I literally thought that, because the rest of the room were like really, really high performing executive type people, lots of lawyers in the room, just, a lot of different people like that. And I mean, I wasn't really judgy about it, but I just thought, you know, I just kind of wondered how she fit in. Well, I realized very quickly how she fit in. She fit in as the one of the biggest givers in the room. And it doesn't matter what you do. You don't have to be a realtor. You don't have to be a mortgage professional. You don't have to be a financial advisor or a PNC agent. You don't have to be any of those people to be a huge giver. And that's where she killed him, is she had a huge heart of a giver, but she also presented herself as a resource to every single person she met. So that day when she said, "Hey, if you need anybody, people listened. Like people were like, oh yeah, but she did it all the time. She became the person in the neighborhood. If they needed anything, I mean, they would call Karen before they sneezed. I mean, that's the relationship that she really started off with them. So it was pretty neat to see her do that. But my point to you about that is, in a one-to-one, you've really got to get across what differentiates yourself. And I need to know what that is so I can get you that opportunity. And then when that key situation happens, like that storm came through town, Karen jumped on it and turned it into a ton of referrals. So that is really why those key situations really make a difference. Another key situation could be buying, selling real estate.
Chris,
Un
can I
oh,
interrupt you?
yes.
Get you wrapped up right away.
Okay, okay. All right, perfect. So, so what you want to do is just make those one-to-ones really, really count and really spend time, you know, getting together on what your key situations are, and then lastly, what your golden goose referral partners are. And so once you figure out, who can feed you business continuously, those are the kind of things that you need to learn at next level in BNI. So I'm Shirley Towne, super excited to get to see you all. If you have any questions, I'm sure I can put my info in the chat, but great to see you all.
Awesome.
Well done, Shirley. Thank you so much.